So, Becky, education career path. So how did you start? Which direction did you find yourself going in initially?
No direction generally. Rudderless, I think, is the way that I would describe myself. So I think for me, like you, and we probably should have recorded all this stuff we were talking about this morning, but we'd have to take out all the expletives, certainly from my point of view. I loved school, weirdly. I was very, very swotty. If anybody knows what I loved school, I loved learning, but I didn't like the environment. So whereas I liked the learning, I struggled with the kind of day-to-day, very tight, found the routine and the actual social inclusion part very stressful, just the noise.
It's like the institutionalised
lifestyle. School for me was, I found it, my actual refuge was reading. So I'm a prolific reader, prolific writer, and that's how I ended up doing my degree in creative arts and writing and film and video. But I was in a special group for gifted individuals. It's hilarious because I was in the not so gifted group for some things and in the totally gifted group for others. So whereas I was in the gifted for creative writing, English literature, loved it. You know, I was reading like Wuthering Heights at age 8. And you know, I love a bit of Bronte and Austen. Typical, very British middle class upbringing. For a working class kid, that was hard. So I was kind of exhibiting the gifted tendencies as such, but I was demonised where maths was concerned. I had terrible education at primary level, and I then later built a career in technology. So I don't know how that works, but I think there's this mythology in technology that you have to be a coder, and actually you don't. The creative thinking and your thinking also is the way that we can look at pattern recognition and also about how data points come together, without going into too much technical boring detail, and how algorithms work and what the behavioural outcomes. So I look a lot around customer behaviour, customer analysis, intuitively knowing how people experience something, what the end user experience is going to be. So I'm good at that sort of stuff. But at school, chronically awful subjects, bored. Just chronically bored in subjects that I didn't like. Looking out the window, really not good. Amazingly did well at O-level, so last year of O-levels, and I'm that old, and CSEs. Bombed my A-levels because my parents got divorced. Was predicted like 3 A's at A-level, ended up with 2 D's and an A. Luckily education was free, degree education was free in the country at that time. So went off and did a degree at Manchester Metropolitan University. Spent a lot of time in the north of England. Love it. Love the northwest, and the most amazing part of the country. And graduated, did everything. I think we're kind of jack of all trades, master of none or mistress of none. Sold cars for a living when I first started. Got on a graduate management scheme for Tesco. Went into retail. Helped launch Club Card. Back in the day, worked on a think tank project for that. Really not a fan of retail. I just find it very, very constraining and difficult, and I couldn't understand why you'd want to line up cereal boxes, even though it appeals to my OCD. I don't understand why you would be graded on how beautiful your cereal boxes look. Just doesn't make any sense. As long as it's in stock, who cares? My manager would turn in his grave now if I said that. Ended up working in clothing for a while, worked for a fantastic clothing company, doing a lot of management of high-end bespoke clothing product. So a lot of the banks, a lot of the bus companies, a lot of building societies. I was managing a staggering amount of money when I look back at it now on key accounts when I was 23, 24. And I just thought it was normal to be as sad as me and want to work as hard as me, and I don't really suppose I had a life. Because life for me has always been, I want to work, I want to solve the problem, I want to sell the thing. So I've spent a lot of time in international sales and marketing, worked in Formula One for a promotional clothing merchandise company based in Twickenham, just outside London. had a great life, international travel, Formula One races, worked with Michael Schumacher, the then Ferrari and Benetton Formula One teams, ran the account for Disney, for retail premises for Disney, did all the T-shirts for like Tinkerbell and all of those kind of stuff. So we used to print all of those and take them off to the shops and stuff. So that was absolutely phenomenal. And then ended up in a career in engineering and technology when I moved south, because I don't know, I suppose selling is very sector agnostic, in that if you can sell, you can pretty much sell anything. Or you should be able to sell anything with the right level of knowledge. And also, I just think in sales, if you're still in the same place in 2 years, you're not doing your job properly.
Right.
Because you should be moving to your next job, your next career, your next uplift. The back end of my career, I was a sales director for an American radio broadcast software company, EMEA. Markets. I worked in power generation industry for an SME based over in Havant, and then a bit like you, had an epiphany moment where I thought, I've had quite rapid career progression, and there's a lot that I know about a lot of markets. And actually that was at school seen as a disadvantage, because you were supposed to want to do something for life.
To specialise.
So everybody's kind of like, and now who's laughing? You know, you kind of think, well, I know so much about this massive sort of panacea of different markets that I suppose, and it's like anything, you are meant to end up where you end up, and it's about serendipity, about who comes into your life. And I think for me, especially with wanting to look at what we're building with a technological platform, is people should be allowed to do what they want,
definitely,
irrespective of barriers. And for me, I didn't think that my brain wiring was unusual for the job that I was doing, and it certainly wasn't. But what I could see was being a top 1% sales performer, and I find that hard to say because it makes me want to throw up a bit and a bit vomity, because we're not good at that. We're not good at, and certainly women aren't encouraged to say that they're good at anything. Whereas I just thought it was what was normal for me was normal for other people.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the things you've achieved here, which are insane, they are in comparison to if we took you into Central Portsmouth and said to somebody in Charles Dickens Ward, this is just down the road from you, this is what's possible. Yeah. That would be hard for that person to envisage how they would get to where you are. Yeah. Yet your struggles at school are probably the same as theirs. Yeah. So we need to create heroes in people that we can see.
Yeah, definitely.
That we can say to children for the next generation, and I would encourage all schools listening to this or anybody watching this to please reach out to your local businesses, and don't just ask them to do rubbish career days. Get them to come out and look around your shops. Come in and have a look. Don't just offer shoddy work experience, and it's not your fault. I'm not having a go at the schools. It's just these are the systems you've been taught that this is what you should be offering children, but these are not what these children's careers are going to look like.
No, not at all. And we're not talking we're not trying to talk people out of doing a 9 to 5 grind, because I do a 9 to 5 grind.
Well,
I love my grind.
I do. Yeah. We all do. But what I'm saying is that the jobs of the future are going to look very different.
Definitely.
And there will still be a need for somebody to, for staff for coffee shops on the high street. Yeah. We need people to be engaged with that. But what I'm saying is our aspirations shouldn't be limited to just perceiving that that's the only offering for people to have, because I think, I remember going for, just to tickle you, I went for careers advice, and I remember somebody saying to me, it's like 1988 this was, and I was in front of this was terrifying, careers advisor said to me, well, clever girl like you should either be a secretary or a teacher. And that was my level of aspiration set at age. That's it, love. My mum was a teacher, my dad was a teacher, and I have a lot of respect for the teaching profession. That's hence why I never went into it. Thank God for you. But what I would say is, there's nothing wrong with a good, solid profession, but if you're not actually built that way, there's nothing wrong with doing something else.
Definitely.
And what we need to be better at is creating those channels of communication between schools and business whereby entrepreneurship is encouraged.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of the things that we've been talking about locally is, and I'll talk to you about this later, is looking at a business education scholarship. which is something that we spoke to our local MP about, Stephen Morgan in Portsmouth, is creating an entrepreneurship education scholarship fund for people to test, for children to test trial. And I think that's something that we should be doing as well. We're encouraging in our local community here, Wickham, it doesn't matter, South Coast, wherever in the country, is creating that national input to where we can start to connect people more fully. And I'm a great believer that we should be working together more closely without agenda. So hopefully that's a really long-winded way of answering your question.
Yes, no, that's a great way.
We will wander off for about 2 hours on this now. We no time left for anybody to do anything like watching telly or anything.
No, I definitely have a similar mantra to that as well. And I think actually education, I think, will become more of an online platform, and people will hopefully be finding the jobs they love.
Well, it will, because we'll be inventing it. So
Exactly. And and that's the way forward.
Through what we're doing is, entrepreneurship education is critical to the success and economic development of this country. Now, I'm not going to get my soapbox out later, but it is, and that's what we're redefining that in terms of the technology that we're building for that delivery. I think irrespective of background, people should have access to great things and be able to create great things. And unfortunately, the innovation ecosystem in this country doesn't allow that, and the systems that control that don't allow that. So we've got to take a much more kind of global, maybe US style view, and say we need to disrupt those systems because in a positive way, and say there is an alternative, and here it is. Would you like to buy into that alternative? And it's not going to be massively pricey and costly. It'd be an affordable thing that people should have access to, and in certain ways, we'll take a portion of the profits of what we make from our platform and give it away for free. Certainly in the international markets that we're looking to put our business and our technology platform into, emerging markets like India and Cameroon, where we already have links. We want to help underrepresented founders, women, people that are neurodivergent. Those, lots of countries that we're looking at in emerging markets don't even have education systems. And we've actually worked with a charity called Urbon that are doing some fantastic stuff around child education in Guinea. And they've just they're building things like toilets to help with women's menstruation projects, because girls can't go to school because they don't have any sanitation.
Right.
So there's all these barriers.
And these are like foundational things.
These are things that we just take for granted.
Yeah.
So I think there's about taking that money and that profit, and we're a very wealthy society, and I don't think that people realise, because we're very British and we whinge a lot, that if we've got running water, if we've got a roof, if we've got food on the table, then we're probably richer than most of the percentage of the world's population. And actually you've already made it. So that for British people is very, very hard to get their head round. When you look at I just say travel, it teaches you so much, but from my point of view, I'm with you. Just better education, and YouTube's out there. Will it replace the school system? Homeschooling is going to become a lot more prevalent in the next 20 years. I'm a big believer in that. I think there's people like you and I that have got children that can't cope with the system. So they're not going to engage with the system. So there's a lot of, are we almost going back in time to move forward?
Yeah, well, that's it. I think I would have engaged more with an online platform that catered to my needs and what I wanted to get out of it and what I wanted to do. Instead of, my career advice was, do you want to join the Army, the Navy or the RAF?
I think we're pigeonholing that. I think it's terrible careers advice, whatever gender you are. I'm not sure I'd want to swap places with you, to be fair. It wasn't much of a choice for either of us, was it? I think, again, we've got to move away from this gender specific thing. It's just, I know that there's a whole row going on about how people identify and, single sex toilets and everything else, but I'm a great believer in just leave people alone and let them get on with whatever they're here to do. And it is really, there's a famous saying is the thing about common sense is it's not all that common. And I'm a great believer in, I don't think I was judged. I think that was the great thing about growing up in the 70s and 80s, is with that feral generation in Gen X, that we had so much freedom to operate, and I wasn't judged. I was bullied for being a swot. I was bullied because I liked learning. I was bullied because I was fat, ginger, northern when I moved down south. But I think bullies will always find there's always something.
Yeah, there's always something.
And actually, I'm glad I wasn't the popular kid, because if I'd have been the popular kid, it would have made me lazy.
Yeah.
And also, I think I wouldn't have been as successful.
Yeah.
Because resilience is the number one thing 100%. In entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I was bullied, and I use that as a positive. If anything, it was a catalyst. So thank you very much for doing that to me, because it made me who I am.
I'd like to thank my school bully. I think it was interesting because my school bully I actually saw years later in the pub just after I graduated, and bless her, she'd already got 2 kids. And she was 21, and I thought, I don't want that.
Yeah.
That would be the thing that. And she came up to me and she said, "Oh, how are you?" And I said, "Great, how are you?" And I actually offered to buy her a drink, and I said, because I realised how far apart we both were. And she just said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I said, "Look, I've just graduated." I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "Oh, I've just got married and I've got a couple of kids." And I just said, "Are you happy?" And she just went, I don't think she was ever. Yeah. I think bullies are particularly unhappy peeps.
Yeah.
Hence why they bully. And also, what annoys them most is if you carry on regardless and you become successful and you're happy, the people that are trying to tear you down actually hate that.
Yeah.
And actually, your haters are actually your biggest motivators, and also your biggest fans. Hi, everybody. Because they actually promote you. I think it was Nicki Minaj was at an awards ceremony a while ago, and she said something along the lines of, "Hey to all my haters, because you make my YouTube numbers shoot up, with the fact you're watching it because you hate on me so much." So I just think you get, light and shade and everything. Definitely. And you just be a good person, and I think everything else happens. And go and find the good people. That's my advice.
Surround yourself with good people.
Good people with the right mindset, positivity, the can-do people. And it's hard because you have to separate family out of the equation sometimes. Get rid of friends that, are toxic or want to keep you at a certain level, or they have a certain perception of you and you serve their needs. Often as you rise and ascend, they have to go, unfortunately. But it's part of life. It's part of being a grown-up, which is rubbish. Adulting would not recommend. But I think, it's life is hard. Yeah. I think emotional intelligence is a gift, but it can be a curse because then you overthink, you're into analysis paralysis. But don't underestimate your abilities and your gifts. You're here for a reason. Find it, use it, do the thing. And if it's you want to work 9 to 5 and you want to take home your money and look after your family, I admire you. Yeah. Because I couldn't do it. It's not for me. But there's so many people that it does work for that I'm looking at it thinking, have we not right?
Yeah, I know.
If totally. I could have that peace of mind, that is amazing. Yeah, that definitely. Peace of mind. Yeah, to always be restless in the way that you and I are. Yeah. Is hard mentally. It is hard, yes, yeah. I think that's mentally hard. Yeah. So what I'd say to people is, watch out for mental health, watch for burnout. And if you have specialised brain wiring, and anybody who has a child who has brain wiring that is like this will know the challenges. Yeah. But talk about it. Actually talk to people maybe in a similar situation or that are once removed. It's okay to talk about it. We shouldn't really tar anyone with a brush, really, should we? No, we shouldn't, and we still do. And I think I still, there's some stuff that I told you earlier on today and you were horrified by, but it still happens, Please don't say to people, you don't look like you're special, or treat people as if they're, daft. Yeah. Or is there anything I can get? Is there a well-meaning look of, most people, we're not stupid. In fact, we're gifted. And I think that we have to be careful that people aren't sort of, this is why I really don't like the term disability, because it's a different ability. Yes. It's not a disability in my world. And in technology, believe me, it's not, because people like me and you are programming, the businesses of tomorrow. So it's just, we live in a different, almost like a parallel world. Yeah. And operationally, from our perspective, what a neurotypical world looks like doesn't function well for us. No. And the barriers are so insane that none of this, it's almost like the operating system in the brain doesn't work. But what I would say is, if you have the right advocacy, the right coaches, the right mentors, the right teams, and this is why people who have neurodivergence are successful, is because they accept help.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we've been used to asking for it.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of neurotypical people would try and force the thing. And a lot of people with fixed mindset will try and force it because they think that that's the way to, I can do it all on my own. And then they wonder why they're in bed for 7 days with a ton of burnout.
Yeah.
You can't do it on your own. You're not, your processing system doesn't allow that. Your brain doesn't allow that. So learn your limits, I suppose, especially for younger people.
Definitely.
Just don't try and roam. Roam in a day wasn't built in a day.
No.
So please don't try it. I've tried it. He's tried it.
Yeah, I've tried it.
Work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I definitely work better with a business partner, with other people. Yeah. I've tried 2 businesses myself, and it just fell flat in its face.
You need the bounce off other people, and I think part of building the Startup Disruptors community was giving people that, which they didn't have.
Yeah.